Hello everyone. In this video, we will see how to build a projected income statement for the next 3 years based on the actual data we have for the last 3 years. Here we have a summarized income statement, okay, for 2015, 16, and 17, which includes revenues minus cost of sales equals gross profit, and we subtract administrative expenses and finance expenses to arrive at income before tax. Then we subtract income tax to arrive at net income. Okay. We will assign 3 scenarios for each year, and we will use a drop-down menu to select from these scenarios. Okay. First of all, we have to analyze the actual figures to uh, know the ratios, and based on these ratios, we will put or assume ratios for the next 3 years. Okay, so we will start with the revenue growth rate. Okay, we cannot get the revenue growth rate for 2015 since we don't have 2014 figures, so we will calculate it for 2016, which equals the revenue for 2016 divided by the revenue for 2015 minus 1. Okay, the cost of sales percentage as percentage of sales equals cost of sales divided by revenue sales. The administrative expenses equals the expenses divided by the revenue. The finance expenses equals the expenses divided by the revenue. And finally, the tax rate equals the income tax divided by the income before tax. Okay, now we can paste these ratios for the next 2 years. Okay, and then we will build a drop-down menu over here to select from each of these scenarios, and we'll link this drop-down menu to the ratios. Okay, so we will go to the toolbar and then go to data validation and select list and select this area, which include the 3 scenarios, and press OK. Okay. Um, Now, based on these ratios we have here, we have to see what will be the ratios for the next year. And for simplicity, we'll use the average for the 3 years here. So we can say in the normal case, we can say that the revenue growth rate will equal the average for the last 2 years. Okay, and in the best scenario, will increase by this rate plus 10%, and in the worst scenario will increase by this rate minus 10%. Okay, for the cost of sales, the normal case will equal the average for um, these 3 years, and it might decrease in the best scenario by this rate, okay, plus 10%, sorry, minus 10%, because it will decrease, and in the worst scenario will increase by this rate plus 10%. Okay, same for the other expenses, administrative and finance. The normal case will equal the average for the last 3 years. Okay, this scenario will equal this minus 5%. Okay, and in the worst scenario equal this rate plus 5%. Okay, the finance expense equals in the normal case will equal the average for the last 3 years, and might here equals this rate minus 1%. and in the worst scenario equal this rate plus 1%. Okay, tax rate normal case will equal the average for the 3 years. Okay, in the best scenario it will um, decrease to 25. We will assume that the ratios will go the same for the other 2 years. Okay, this one. Okay, administrative expenses, finance expenses, and the tax rate. And now we can paste these for the third year. Um, now we need to put the ratios here, okay? Based on the selection we will make from this drop-down menu, okay? So for this purpose, I'll use a combination of offset and match functions, okay? I'll say equal offset, and offset consists of three arguments. The first argument is the reference or the starting point, meaning that I have to start from one cells. Then I tell offset to go number of rows and columns downward, okay, or right or left or whatever, okay. The last two arguments are optional and we will not use here, okay. So in this example, for example, I'll start from this cell, okay, over here, okay, then comma. If I told offset to go 3 rows down and 0 column and press enter, it will give me 5%, meaning that, okay, I started at this point, then I moved 3 rows down and 0 columns. I stayed within the same columns, okay. But we need to make this dynamic, okay. So when I can select another scenario here, it has to change here. For this, I'll use match, okay. So I write match, okay. Um, match function, okay, equal the lookup value, okay, which is this value because I'm looking for the scenario from this drop down menu here, and I have to locate it by pressing F4 key. Then I have to match this lookup value with the three scenarios which in this array over here, and I have to locate it by F4 as well. Then the third argument is the match type, and in this case we need to use the exact match, so I have to put 0. Okay, now I finished with offset function. I have to finish sorry, I finished with match function. I have to finish offset function. So I'll put 0 because I don't want to move from the columns. I'll put 0. Okay, so it gives me 25%. Okay, so uh, that means it gives me this one because I selected the best scenario. Okay, if I change the scenario to the normal scenario, it will get moved to this 15. If I change it to the worst case, it will give me 5%. Okay, I'll do the same for the remaining functions. Equals offset. Okay, the starting point, here we are in cost of sales, so the starting point will be this cell. Okay, then I'll use match to get to the rows and columns. The lookup value is this value in the drop down menu, lock it, and the lookup array is this one here, and lock it by 4, then 0 for exact match, then 0 to finish the offset. Okay, so it gave me 15 because I selected the worst scenario, and the worst scenario for the cost of sales is 50. Okay, then for the general and administrative equals offset. Okay, here is the starting point, then use match, lookup value is this value over here, look it. Then the lookup array and look it also. Then 0 for exact match and 0 for the columns for offset function. Okay, finance expense equals offset reference. The starting point will be here because I'll move through this range. Okay, then I'll use match. Okay, the lookup value for match is here, look it, and the lookup array, this array, look it, and 0 for exact match, then 0 for the offset. Okay, finally the tax equals offset reference, starting point will be here, match. Okay, lookup value, look it, then the lookup array, look it, then 0 for exact match and 0 to finish offset. Okay, since I used the effort to lock the cells properly, I can now paste these cells to the other 2 years. Okay, now we will calculate our figures for the 3 years based on this ratio. So the revenue for 2018 will equal revenue for 2017 multiplied by 1 plus the growth ratio. Okay, and the cost of sales for will equal this revenue multiplied by this ratio over here. Okay, gross profit equals revenue minus cost of sales. Then the finance expense will equal revenue multiplied by the ratio over here. Sorry, the administrative expenses equals revenue multiplied by this ratio, and the finance expense will equal the revenue multiplied by this ratio. So now the income before tax equals gross income minus administrative expenses minus finance expenses. Okay, the income tax will equal the income before tax multiplied by the tax rate, and net income equals income before tax minus income tax. Okay, we will format these numbers. Okay, 0 decimal, and now we can paste it. Okay, without formatting. Okay, so now we have a dynamic selection. You know, if we change it to normal case, we will see that the ratios change it, and accordingly the figures for the income statement for the 3 years change. Okay, we selected the best scenario, normal, and worst scenario. I hope this video will you know um, get your like, and thank you very much.